When I walked back into my apartment after months overseas, the sense of something being wrong hit me like a wave. The place felt different. It wasn't just that everything was in its place. It was too tidy, too clean, like someone had been trying too hard to cover up a mess. I'd only been gone for 6 months, and I trusted Tyler to look after things, but something didn't add up. My mother-in-law's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Oh, Wendy, it's so good to see you. You've been such a help paying the rent all this time." My heart skipped a beat. Paying rent? What did she mean? This was my apartment, the one I owned long before I even met Tyler. Why would I be paying rent? Suspicion churned inside me, but I forced a smile. "It's good to be home," I said, even though it didn't feel like home anymore. Something was terribly wrong, and I needed to figure out what. As I unpacked my bags, my mind raced, replaying the moment over and over again. Had Tyler told them this was his place now? Had he moved them in while I was gone? My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were acting so comfortable, like they belonged here. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to, but I couldn't confront them outright, not yet. I needed to understand the full picture. Ignorance is bliss, they say, but in my case, it was a recipe for disaster. Tyler wasn't home, and that only added to my anxiety. What kind of man lets his family live in his wife's apartment without even asking? I'd trusted him, and now I couldn't even trust my own instincts. The weight of uncertainty pressed on me, but I knew I had to stay calm. If I pushed too hard too fast, I'd scare them into silence. So I pretended nothing was wrong, for now. My name is Wendy, and I'm 36 years old. This wasn't my first marriage, and unfortunately, it might not be my last. My first husband and I had divorced years ago after countless arguments and irreparable differences. At the time, I was a stay-at-home wife, and the lack of independence had weighed heavily on me. After the divorce, I found solace in my work. I'd built a career for myself, regained my confidence, and told myself I'd never rely on a man again. But then Tyler came into my life. He was also a divorcee, and we bonded over our shared experiences. It was easy to fall for him, to believe that we could be each other's fresh start. 3 years had passed since our remarriage, but things were already starting to fall apart. We had agreed to share household responsibilities, but soon enough I found myself doing everything, cooking, cleaning, and managing the household, all while working full-time. Tyler, meanwhile, seemed to think his only job was taking out the trash, if that. I'd tried talking to him, but each conversation ended the same way. "I'll help next time," he'd say, but next time never came. It was just one broken promise after another. It wasn't just the housework. Tyler and I had grown distant in other ways, too. The laughter that once filled our home had faded, replaced by awkward silences and forced conversations. I tried to ignore it, hoping things would improve, but deep down I knew something was wrong, something far worse than unwashed dishes and unpaid bills. The tension between us simmered just beneath the surface. Every time I tried to bring it up, Tyler would shrug it off, dismissing my concerns. I was beginning to wonder if I even knew him at all. The man I married, the man I thought I could trust, was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. Then there was the matter of his mother and sister. They had never been particularly warm towards me, but this, moving into my apartment without permission? That was a new level of disrespect. I wanted answers, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear them. One evening, while Tyler was still at work, I decided to confront my mother-in-law. We were sitting in the living room, and I casually asked how long she and my sister-in-law had been staying. "Oh, just a few months," she said with a smile. "Tyler thought it would be best, considering your long business trip." My heart dropped. He had made this decision without me, without even consulting me. But why? And more importantly, why hadn't he told me before I came home? I tried to keep my voice steady. "I see. And how are you managing the rent? My mother-in-law's expression shifted slightly. Oh, Tyler's been taking care of that. Taking care of it? What did that even mean? This was my apartment, fully paid off. There was no rent to pay. The lie was starting to reveal itself, but I wasn't ready to expose it just yet. I needed to talk to Tyler first. Whatever was going on, it was bigger than I had imagined. That night, when Tyler finally came home, I was ready for a confrontation. I had spent hours rehearsing what I would say, but when the moment came, the words stuck in my throat. Tyler walked in, smiling as if everything was normal. "How was your day?" he asked. Zrania, but I could hear the tension in his voice. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why didn't you tell me your mother and sister had moved in?" I asked, my voice trembling with barely controlled anger. Tyler froze, the smile dropping from his face. I didn't think it was a big deal," he mumbled. "Not a big deal?" I snapped. "This is my apartment, Tyler. You didn't think I deserved to know who was living in it while I was gone?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Wendy, I'm sorry. I thought you'd be okay with it." "Okay with it? You didn't even ask me." My voice was rising now, the frustration spilling over. "And what about the rent? What's this about you paying rent?" Tyler's face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. In that moment, I realized there was more to this than just a misunderstanding. He was hiding something, and it was time for the truth. After a long pause, Tyler finally spoke. "Wendy, I need to tell you something." His voice was barely above a whisper, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. My stomach churned. "What is it?" He hesitated, then blurted out, I've been seeing someone else." The room spun around me. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "What?" The word came out as a whisper, disbelief lacing my voice. "It was a mistake," he said quickly, as if trying to contain the damage. "It started when you went on your business trip. She's a colleague, and we've been working late together. Things just got out of hand." I stood there, numb, unable to process what he was saying. This was the man I had trusted, the man I had built a life with, and he had betrayed me. The room felt too small, the walls closing in on me. "How long?" I managed to ask. "About 3 months," he admitted, his voice barely audible. 3 months. All that time, while I had been working hard overseas, he had been here, with her. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw him out of the apartment and never look back. But another part of me, the part that still wanted to understand how this had happened, kept me rooted to the spot. "So, you moved them in to cover for your affair?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Tyler nodded, shame written all over his face. "I thought if they were here, it would be harder for you to find out." I couldn't believe it. Not only had he cheated, but he had dragged his family into the lie, using them as pawns to protect his secret. My heart ached with the weight of the betrayal. "I can't do this," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. "I need some time to think." Tyler reached out, but I stepped back. "Wendy, please, I'll do anything to make this right." But I didn't want to hear it. I needed to get out of there, to clear my head before I made any decisions. The next few days were a blur. I stayed with a friend, avoiding Tyler's calls and texts. I couldn't face him, not after everything that had happened. My mind was spinning with questions. How had it come to this? Had I been blind to the signs, or had I simply ignored them, hoping things would get better? I met with a lawyer, laying out the details of our situation. The lawyer was straightforward. "You have grounds for divorce," she said. "The affair is reason enough, but considering he's moved his family into your home without permission, you could also file for property damages." The word divorce hung in the air like a storm cloud. This wasn't where I had expected my life to go, but at that moment, it felt like the only option. I returned to the apartment a few days later, ready to confront Tyler one last time. When I walked through the door, the place was eerily quiet. His mother and sister were nowhere to be seen. Tyler sat on the couch, his head in his hands. "Wendy," he said, standing up as soon as he saw me. Please, let's talk." I shook my head. "I've made my decision, Tyler. I'm filing for divorce." Tyler's face crumpled, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. "Wendy, please. Don't do this. I'll change, I swear." But it was too late. The trust was gone, shattered by his lies and betrayal. "You should have thought about that before you cheated," I said, my voice steady. "It's over, Tyler." The following weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and legal proceedings. Tyler tried to make amends, but the damage had been done. His mother and sister were forced to move out, and Tyler, left with nothing, resigned from his job. His affair had fallen apart as well, his mistress having moved on to someone else. Meanwhile, I thrived. My career soared, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the lies, the broken promises, and the toxic relationship that had held me back for so long. A few months later, I stood on the balcony of my apartment, looking out at the city skyline. The apartment was mine again, truly mine, and the peace that had once seemed so elusive was finally within reach. I had learned a lot from my 2 failed marriages. Most importantly, I had learned that I deserved better, and that I was strong enough to move on, even from the deepest betrayals. Tyler's story, like my first husband's, was now just a chapter in my past. As for my future, I knew one thing for certain. It was bright, and it was mine to control.